Welcome back to the best years. 75 years ago, Admiral Farragut Academy opened its doors in Pine Beach as a U.S. naval prep school for boys and young men. Closed now for 14 years, some of the school's buildings and plenty of its history remain.
Traveling through Ocean County, New Jersey, many people might miss the rich history of its communities if they aren't looking closely.
Pine Beach, a quiet borough on the southern shore of the Toms River, is one such place. Visiting its beautiful waterfront, one will encounter large new-style homes bordered by athletic fields surrounded by more modest homes. But it wasn't always the case. We can easily make out the historic site that once stood at this place, one that saw many brave soldiers, future leaders, and even America's first astronaut pass through its hallowed halls. Admiral Farragut Academy, the nation's first naval prep school, came to the Pine Beach shoreline in 1933. Its concept, born from an idea conceived by a group of experienced, dedicated educators, was led by Admiral S.S. Robeson, U.S. Navy, and Brigadier General C.S. Radford, U.S. Marine Corps. Waterfront being essential to the Naval Prep School site, these men searched up and down the eastern seaboard before stumbling across a large, closed hotel. Purchasing the site and surrounding property, the founders decided to name the school for Admiral David Glasgow Farragut, who, after a spectacular career in the U.S. Navy, was named the nation's first admiral by an act of Congress in 1866. The original campus, comprised of just 20 acres and the old hotel, was later renamed Farragut Hall. Through World War II, the Korean War, and into Vietnam, the Academy flourished and expanded, driven by America's years of great pride in its armed forces. A southern branch was opened in St. Petersburg, Florida, back in 1945, and the Pine Beach campus grew to some 40 acres of borough property and more than half a dozen new buildings used to house, educate, and train its cadets. These young men, and later women, engaged in a host of esteemed athletic teams and activity clubs, including the school newspaper, the Capstan, and the school yearbook, the Trident. The daily life of each cadet started with early morning reveille, at a time when most public school students would still be sound asleep. Throughout the day, cadets attended class, participated in marching and formation exercises, and took part in curricular and extracurricular activities. In the evening, cadets enjoyed dinner in the mess hall, followed by a study session, half an hour of free time, and finally, call to quarters and lights out by 10 p.m. On weekends, cadets engaged in athletics, battalion drills, dress parades, sailing, and formal inspections. A cadet's social life revolved around the canteen, located in Shepherd Hall, and included spirited table game matches or formal dances. Eligible cadets also took privileges off campus to eat out and be entertained by establishments in Toms River. The Academy saw its most prestigious graduate, Alan B. Shepard, attend in 1941, when the future space pioneer found himself wanting more structure prior to attending the U.S. Naval Academy. In 1959, Shepard was chosen as one of the original 7 astronauts for Project Mercury, the first U.S. space program. The flight of the Freedom 7 in 1961 launched him to superstardom as the first American in space. Admiral Farragut Academy was quick to build a new cadet activity center in his honor in 1962. Shepard would go on to walk on the moon in 1971 as commander of the Apollo 14 mission, and eventually retired from NASA as Rear Admiral in 1974. Throughout his life and career, Shepard served as the inspiration for many cadets who attended Admiral Farragut Academy. Sadly, financial troubles combined with aging facilities caused the untimely closing of the original Pine Beach campus in 1994. Pine Beach residents and alumni fondly remember Admiral Farragut Academy for its excellence in education, proud heritage, and naval tradition. That proud heritage should always be preserved and never forgotten. Admiral Farragut Academy will forever have a place in Ocean County's history and sailing tradition.
From the site of the former Admiral Farragut Academy, I'm Don Malaji.
Welcome back to The Best Years. A beloved Jersey Shore landmark is shining brightly once again after being dark for more than 80 years. The relighting of the Barnegat Lighthouse took place New Year's Day, 150 years after Old Barney first went into service.
Living in Barnegat Light is like living in no other place. It's a village. It's different than any other town on the island. It has its own government. We have the Coast Guard station. We have the inlet. We have a commercial fishing fleet. There's just a lot of things that make this the most unique place on the island to live.
In January 2009, visitors and residents of Barnegat Light, located on Long Beach Island, New Jersey, witnessed the historic relighting of Barnegat Lighthouse. Built in the 19th century, this Jersey Shore icon still stands tall after enduring storms, erosion, and the march of time.
Friends of Barnegat Lighthouse State Park got started with a small group of volunteers who were volunteering at the Interpretive Center. Our group is started with maybe 5 or 6 people, and we have over 100 members, and it was the 150th anniversary of the lighthouse. We wanted to do something special, and we came up with the idea of relighting the lighthouse.
Before construction, New Jersey's rocky coastline caused wrecks and sometimes death for sailors heading through these waterways during storms, fog, or in the dark of night. In 1834, the first lighthouse was built. Just 40 feet tall, oil lamps and silver reflectors emitted a weak beam reaching 10 miles out to sea. Sailors mistook this dim light for another vessel, and the shipwrecks continued. So a new lighthouse was built 900 feet south of the old one. It stood 161 feet tall and projected a white light 20 miles out. The new lighthouse, which residents dubbed Old Barney, was lit on January 1st, 1859. Over the next 60 years, the lighthouse signal was lit each night at dusk by a keeper and 2 assistants. The men lived with their families in a large 2-story home that stood next to the tower. The lighthouse once served as a beacon of safe passage for transatlantic ships heading to New York and Philadelphia. By 1927, radio communication ended the need for the lighthouse. That year, Old Barney's oil light was replaced by a weak electric bulb. Its magnificent lens removed and later placed in the Barnegat Light Museum. The lighthouse was decommissioned in 1944 and named a state park and landmark in 1970. Wind, weather, and time continued to age Old Barney, but countless visitors still climbed its 217 steps for an aerial view of the island. Over the next 30 years, public interest grew in seeing the lighthouse beam once again. And in late 2008, Old Barney received a new lucite panel lens to project a beam of 22 nautical miles. The icon's weathered old windows were also replaced with stronger, crystal clear ones.
For me, being on the water, if you have a case 20 miles offshore, you can't see anything, but you can still see the lighthouse, and it's nice to see that. Lets you know you're still near home. It's still within reach.
I think that having relighted the lighthouse, it's taken it back to its main purpose, and the main purpose was to be a navigational aid. And it's a working lighthouse again, rather than just a building standing there with a bulb in the top of it. And I think it's made us in town here very proud, and I think people throughout the state are happy to see, because it's an icon wherever you go in the state, and now it's a working lighthouse again, and I think it's returned to the purpose that it was meant to be.
After much planning, it was announced that Old Barney would be relit at dusk on New Year's Day, 2009. But given the severe cold and off-season, local officials didn't think many would attend the historic event. Officials were wrong. Thousands of visitors from across New Jersey and surrounding states streamed onto the island. Police scrambled to direct the heavy flow of traffic as local and national news agencies arrived in vans with satellite dishes. A U.S. Coast Guard cutter bobbed offshore, everyone waiting for Old Barney's light to shine.
It was really a thrill that night when they relit the lighthouse. We had 10,000 people, and that's the most people that had ever really been in this town at one time. And it was such a thrill that when the light went on and the cheers went up and horns started to blow, and there were tears coming down my eyes, because it was just such an emotional thing.
And so it was on January 1st, 2009, Barnegat Lighthouse was relit and proudly beamed across the horizon. With continued support and funding, perhaps folks in 150 years will be able to look up and enjoy the signal that has lighted the way for sailors and vacationers over the centuries.